Yeah.
Opening the Oldham County Code Enforcement Board meeting of May 1st. And start there at the approval, we swear in.
Do you solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony you're about to give to this board is true and accurate to the best of your belief and knowledge?
I do.
Okay, has everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes?
I have. I move that they be accepted as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion's carried. On to old business or new business? Right ahead.
We on to citation number 518. I have a parcel number. I don't have an actual address for this. It's 25-LL-00-100 through 107. It's in Lake Louisville.
There's no street address.
Correct. The property is owned by the Kenwood Missionary Baptist Church, which is at 8900 West Highway 22. And it's actually adjacent to their property. It's basically a house that sits there that they had bought. That's technically in Lake Louisville.
Okay.
So a hearing was not requested. The violation is the Oldham County nuisance ordinance, section 89-800-846, section 1, definitions: the keeping or depositing on or the scattering over the premises of any of the following: lumber, junk, trash, debris, abandoned, discarded, or unused objects or equipment such as automobiles, furniture, stoves, refrigerators, freezers, cans, or containers. Started on December 20th, 2018. The Code Enforcement Office received a call regarding the condition of the property. I went out there, did a site visit, observed that the property was overgrown. They had chain link fencing across the front of the property that was falling down. They had a privacy fence on one side that was falling over in 8-foot sections. It was overgrown, and the buildings themselves were intact, but just the general condition of the property. Photographs were taken, and I did make an attempt to contact the church via telephone and leave them a voicemail. There's the photos from that visit. And that is from the street in Lake Louisville side. And the
What is the street? Do you know the name of that street?
Hillside Drive,
Okay.
I believe is the name of it. The church is actually located on the property behind there on this photo.
Yeah, so the church's address is actually on 22,
Yes, sir.
and this property is back in behind it.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's two more photos from the same visit.
When was that? When did you take those pictures? There ought to be leaves on those trees by now.
December.
Oh.
On January 4th, I received a call back from Mr. Larry Johnson, who's affiliated with the church, said that he would be the point of contact and that he would make arrangements to start getting the property cleaned up. Also requested an extension for the compliance date to January 30th because it was going to be volunteer labor and they had to get their members of their church together to do the work. I said, okay, January 30th. On January 31st, I did a follow-up site visit and found that nothing had been done to the property. I contacted Mr. Johnson, who said that he wasn't able to get any of the volunteers together to do the work, but it was supposed to be done on February 3rd is when they were going to start. And so I told him I'd wait till February 4th, come down, see that there's been some progress made, and we'd go from there. And there's the January 31st visit. On February 4th, I did a site visit and found again that there was no improvement in the condition of the property. So photographs were taken and a notice of violation was sent to the owner of record. On February 20th, site visit was conducted. I found some work had been started. Basically, the chain link fencing had been pulled down. Some of the fence posts had been left laying, but they started doing something. So I scheduled a follow-up visit for March 6th. And pretty much the chain link fence is the only thing that had been done. On March 6th, I conducted a site visit and found no other improvement had been made to the property. Since my previous visit, photographs were taken, and citation 518 was issued to the owner record via certified mail, and a copy of the citation was secured to the front door of the church. That's photos from that visit. Let me know if you need me to slow down on these photos. And there's the citation on the front door of the church. On March 11, 2019, Reverend Booker contacted my office stating he wasn't aware of any of this going on until they received the citation. He's also the one that signed certified mail for the citation. He stated that he would have the property brought into compliance prior to the hearing. He'd take care of it himself. On April 1st, I went down, did a site visit, found the property was in compliance. The rest of the chain link was down. The privacy fencing, you see the photograph on the left, all the privacy fencing has been torn down. The lot was mowed. In talking with Reverend Booker, they are looking to have the buildings torn down eventually. It's just cost prohibitive right now, but the buildings are not in question at this point in time, so. So it took a little while, but at this point in time, the property's in compliance. So I'd request that y'all consider dismissing it.
So moved.
Need a second? You got a second? Okay. Motion to move forward. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
Okay, the second case is a year old. It's from citation 505. The address is 8800 West Highway 42 in Goshen. That's the property that's owned by Three Girls in the Forest LLC. And if you don't care, I'm going to fast, unless y'all need a refresher, I'm going to fast forward. On our February 6th hearings, it was, y'all voted to carry this over to the following hearing, give them more time. And this is our first opportunity to have a hearing since February. I went by this morning, and it was actually done before this morning, but officially, as of this morning, all the issues have been fixed. All the trash and debris is gone. So I don't have, they've abated everything that was brought to their attention. So, and the house is still undergoing renovation, but that wasn't an issue for my office at the time. So,
Okay.
at this point,
Dismiss
I
that one.
request that we dismiss that one.
Do we have a request to dismiss? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion's carried.
Let me go out of order, if it's all right with you all, for one of the follow-ups is citation 517. It was 4405 West Highway 146 in Buckner, the old post office.
Yeah.
There was a nuisance complaint. It was heard February 6th. And as of the 6th, there was still a pallet and a wall locker piled up outside. Board found the property in violation, issued a fine of $3,675 to be held in abeyance for 30 days. Pending the terms of the final order, which was basically gave them 30 days from that hearing to bring the property into compliance. Get back down here. I followed up on March 6th. I found the property had been brought into compliance. Those items had been removed, and nothing else had been piled back up. So at that point, I considered it, you know, there's the photographs. I found the property be in compliance with, you know, what we'd said. So just basically a follow-up that, you know, case is going to be closed.
Okay.
It's a dead issue.
So motion to dismiss, did I hear?
No, I don't think, he don't need a motion to dismiss. We already fined them.
Right. I mean, it's.
Held it
it's-
in abeyance, so it's
Okay.
just, they've
Yeah,
met their
they're
terms
compliant-
of
they
the
were,
remedial order
you
and
know,
we're ready to
compliant with the
go.
order, so. Okay, and this case is citation number 515. The address is 7107 Oak Terrace. It's located in Pee Wee Valley. This was another case that was heard, I believe, on February 6th. And just as a refresher, on November 14th of 2018, site office had received a complaint on the property, went down, and what we found is a inoperable vehicle parked on the property, the white box truck with a fair amount of junk, trash, and debris piled up behind it. Pull this back up. On December 17th, citation 515 was issued to the owner of record. Because nothing had been done to bring the property into compliance. There was a citation posted on the door. Ms. Bitely, I believe she was in here on our February hearing. Stated that she no longer resided there, but the van and the items were hers, and she was trying to get them off the property, and would have them removed no later than February of 2019. On February 4th, she said most of the debris had been removed. She was trying to make arrangements to remove the vehicle. And on February 6th, we had a hearing that found that,
And we tabled it for 30 days.
right, the van was still there along with some of the material in the driveway, carried it over for 30 days. As of today, the van and the debris are still in the driveway. So that's where we are at.
And she's had since February?
This originated November 14th is when
That's when you visited the site,
Yes.
but when you first spoke with her,
it was, December 21st.
and did she give you a date as to when she would,
She stated it would be no later than February of 2019.
end of February?
Yes. We had the hearing on the 6th, February 6th, and the stuff was still there.
Tabled it for 30 days, and then we didn't meet because of the Oldham era
Right.
thing. And
So, I went down there this morning, as of this morning, that's the condition of the property. She also contacted my office a little earlier today, stating that she was gonna have the van gone by the end of the week. She also stated she understands she's had more than enough time to do it, she's just been unable to. So I told her I would pass that along to the board.
This originated as a complaint.
Yes. From the city of Pekin.
Everything's gone but the van.
In the pile that you see behind it, some type of white vinyl. It's not really siding, it didn't look like, I don't know what it is.
Gee, I don't know. I mean, did she say when she's gonna have it gone this time?
Should be by this weekend coming up.
Yeah, we could go ahead and find and cite and, give her 30 days and it would still be within her, but I mean, she's had ample time and,
Yes.
or do we want to table it for another
Is there any
30?
other
What's your
discussion?
feeling? What's your feeling with her?
She's had more than enough time, and honestly, when you wait till the day of the hearing to call, I mean, it kind of boxed me up. There's nothing I can do with it.
Right.
I think she wants to get it out of there. I think because she no longer resides on the property, the woman that does reside there wants it gone. I don't know if it's a money issue or what's going on. She didn't elaborate on it.
Yeah, well, it's 6 one, half a dozen the other for me. I guess she knows she's had more than enough time and
Yes, and
give
she
it
even
some
stated
incentive to
that.
get it cleaned up.
And we have options if we go ahead and process this.
Yes, we could. Since we've tabled it, we could process it to move forward. So that's probably the best thing to do, just to make sure she's aware that we're serious. I'll make that.
Okay. We need to do the full procedural?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll let you start, Steve, on page 3. We'll do the full
Okay.
procedural.
Yes, I'll move that citation was properly issued on. I've got to go back and look at my notes here. Daryl, could you help me? Citation was issued. I'm looking at
On December 17th.
on December 17th of 2018 to the property owner. Mrs. Bitely is the property owner.
Well, correct. They're both persons
Okay.
are listed as the owner of the property, although the one that owns the truck does not reside on the property any longer.
Right, but still, Mrs. Bitely is the owner.
Right.
Okay, and that's that's who you've been working with.
Yes.
All right, and notice of the hearing was given to the respondent on the same date. And the respondent did not request a hearing to contest the citation. But was notified of this hearing and failed to appear. Therefore, the respondent is deemed to waive the right to hearing and contest the citation. Determination of the violation was committed should be final, and the board may proceed with the penalty phase.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Steve Moss. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. And this is for procedural matters of the property being under violation or on 12/17/2018. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion's carried.
Nuisance ordinance violation, I move that there was a violation found to exist. KOC 89-800-846-1 and KOC 89-800-846-2. Person that is allowed partially dismantled and wrecked, junked, discarded, or non-operational vehicles or machines to remain on the premises for more than 15 days. And the observation by the officer that there is substantial evidence in the record the violation has been permitted to exist since December the 17th.
Okay, we have a motion. I'm sorry.
So that's, I gotta count the days there. That would be, how many? 135. Thank you, Amy, for doing that. It saves me a lot of time. 135 days.
All
And
right.
that ends my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor made by Board Member Moss for, and I need a second, for the violation of the Oldham County nuisance was committed and has been to exist for 135 days. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries.
So, moving on to determination of penalty, I move that we issue a remedial order with terms stating that the property be brought into compliance within 30 days of today's date.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Board Member Moss that the property be brought into compliance 30 days as of today's date. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried.
And to assess a fine, I move to assess a civil fine, and I don't have my fine schedule with me. Does anybody have it in front of them? Sorry, so what is
Was
the
it
first
down-
offense, and it's $75 a
Down at the
day?
bottom.
Oh, I'm sorry, I see it there, okay. To do the math, $75 a day for 135 days, $10,125. Yeah, well, we could, it just sounds pretty high. But as long as she brings the property within the compliance, I don't know, maybe we should, I think I'll move to fine at $25 a day. That's the maximum is 75, so 25 times 135, it's $3,375. To be held in abeyance for 30 days pending she meets the terms of the remedial order.
Okay, we have a civil fine on the floor by Board Member Moss that the property would be, a fine of $3,375 would be held in abeyance if the property was brought into compliance within the 30 days. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries.
It's the end of them.
Thank you very much.
Adjourned? Oh. Oh, we've got some educational stuff here.
Recommendations.
Okay.
I'll kind of set this up for you and then let Daryl and Matt talk about this. Looking at a couple of things, and as an example, the fine schedule that you just had to grapple with on that particular one, which you admitted was high. Matt and Daryl reviewed the ordinance creating the code enforcement board and requirements, and there are some fairly simple recommended changes to the ordinance. And then there's also a recommended fine schedule we'd like you to at least think about adopting. Procedurally, we're going to take this to the Public Safety Committee, which is a subcommittee of fiscal court. First, for kind of their review, it's 3 members of fiscal court. If they want to advance these recommendations, and certainly open to your comments as well, then the next step would be to have the county attorney's office, essentially, we've kind of already done that using Matt, review it, get the blessing of Judge Vogel to go on to fiscal court and consider adopting these changes. So I'll let Daryl and Matt talk about the recommended changes.
Okay, so the ordinance, the county ordinance, largely mimics the state statute for code enforcement boards. What we have been doing, at least since I've been sitting with the board, is not in complete compliance with the statute. Now, that sounds bad, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, because what this board has been doing has been offering more leniency and more procedural protections to homeowners than what's contemplated by both the statute and the ordinance. So I agree. Daryl believes that we could streamline the way we do business, and I agree with that, because I think that's what the ordinance and the statute contemplates. But it occurred to me today, as I'm sitting here, because I'm thinking about how would it be different if we started following the statute to the T. What we would not have the opportunity to do, which I think the board probably wants to do, is to dismiss cases when, under the ordinance and statute, we could probably issue a final order without a hearing and just walk away from it. But instead, what you've been doing, what Daryl's been doing, has been working with the property owners just to get them in compliance, which I think is what our ultimate goal is. So as we talk about the potential change in how we operate, I don't think we should foreclose ourselves the opportunity to use this existing procedure if Daryl's willing to continue helping people get into compliance, and if the board doesn't want to just mechanically approve a lot of fines without a lot of interaction between the code enforcement officer and the property owner. Because if you read the statute, it almost reads like the code enforcement officer issues a citation. If it's not paid or contested, it becomes a final order on its own, and then everybody just walks away. And if I think it's okay to do it that way. It's lawful. We don't have to have these hearings on every case just to issue a final order. I think the citation itself becomes the final order unless a hearing is affirmatively requested. But if some of these things take months to come into compliance, which I think is a better outcome than just issuing a fine and waiting for the next complaint to come in. So I'm not sure where I'm going to fall in terms of making a recommendation. I think the revisions that Daryl's proposed to the ordinance make sense, and I'll let him explain why. because my memory's failing me on the specific changes, but in general, we've been doing things that are a little bit more lenient, more property owner friendly, more protective of the property owner's due process rights than are necessary. So there's always that option to streamline the citation, final order process, and not have these hearings that seem sort of unnecessary when the property owner's not even here. So it's a lot of information, but I think if you read it, you'll see that the hearings should, in strict compliance with the statute, only be scheduled when requested by the property owner.
Right.
And I'll just let you add to whatever
Okay.
I've said.
The handouts you have, the top one, there's two. The top one is our actual code board ordinance. Underneath that is a copy of Kentucky Revised Statute 65.8801 to 65.8839, which govern the counties on making up the code board process. And what I got looking at and brought up was the issue number one that I have is in Section 9 of the Code Board Ordinance. Section 9, letter B. I've been restricted by the ordinance that I cannot issue a citation without first issuing the notice of violation. And that comes with a 15-day, have to get them, have to give the property owner before I can move with the citation. That's not necessarily a bad thing with the regular run-of-the-mill cases that I get. There are a few instances where, and it's been talked about before, you know, the concrete trucks, you know, the solid waste haulers that's coming through Oldham County without permits, giving them notices of violation in 15 days is pointless, but I can't get to a citation without it. So, you know, code enforcement's kind of spinning its wheels on that. So what this does, the proposed change, it just authorizes me to be able
Gives you the
to
ability to
issue
make the
the
decision.
citation without having to go through the notice of violation. I don't foresee that being an issue or coming up in regular code enforcement cases. The process that we have in place that I use is very effective, I think, in working with the property owners to get the property into compliance. You know, I don't want to change that process. I just want to have that option open for a few particular instances where that's the only avenue I have that's practical.
As board members, do you want us, as we go through this, if we're in total support of this and we have questions, can we just go ahead and say?
Yes, by all means, by all means.
And it,
Ultimately, this has to go to fiscal court for
Right.
approval.
Yes.
Right.
But this gives him support,
Oh,
gives
yeah.
them the support to do that.
if you believe that it's the right thing to do, then sure, that would be good, and then we can carry it forward.
Okay.
For you to immediately issue a citation to a solid waste hauler, you're gonna have to pull them over.
Not if they're already, no, I have no ability to make a traffic stop.
Maybe
know,
you need that
Pull a
ability.
truck over. But the ones that come in, bring dumpsters, drop the dumpsters, you know, because we get those occasionally, some from out of state that come over, they start dropping dumpsters in Oldham County, and they don't have the permit. So,
Okay, so it's dumpster companies that.
dumpster companies.
Dumpsters and concrete, and I will just share, tearing my house down, I used a company I did not know and found out later they were not licensed to be in in
Okay.
Oldham County.
Okay.
So,
Well, if you see a concrete truck washing out side of the road, you're gonna
Exactly.
approach that driver?
Yep.
and issue him a
Yes, I will.
citation?
photograph the license plate of the truck, photograph the activity that he's doing, you know, issue the citation. Citation to the company.
You're not gonna have to demand his license?
No,
and-
no,
Okay.
No, it'd just be a civil
correct,
fine.
to the company. And as far as I know, most of the concrete companies that come into Oldham County, they've met, I believe it was last year, with the county engineer's office. They had a big meeting. and to discuss this whole washing concrete out. Because there's supposed to be designated areas and
It's a
developments.
containment washout area, yeah.
And that's where they're supposed to wash out at. They wash out along ditch lines and on the edge of the roads, and the concrete ends up into
Isn't that part of the best practices for the construction permit though, too?
In the MS4 program, yes.
So shouldn't that fine go to the contractor who's in charge of that site instead of the concrete truck?
Oh, that's, how can
Well-
you control the truck driver?
well, see, go
It's
ahead.
a lot
go ahead.
easier to identify the concrete
You're talking
truck and the
about the
person, the
concrete company.
operator, the company, who is supposed to carry portable washouts in case there isn't one available.
They are, okay.
And so it's really a lot more direct to go to the contractor, the concrete company.
I see.
Not the individual driver, but to the company.
Right, yes, I understand that, but I'm just thinking of, if there's no washout space provided for them on a site, now,
But they're supposed to be carrying portable.
supposed to be carrying the portable ones, I
Yes,
wasn't aware of that,
And they
okay.
do, and they could just use that and charge back to the contractor, whoever they have a contract with.
Or in a case where somebody just has some concrete delivered to their home, they're not gonna have a washout
That's
pit there.
correct. Yeah, somebody's putting in a brand-new sidewalk in front of their house, and they don't know they're supposed to have a washout, and the concrete company is supposed to be the one doing it.
Okay, I see.
It's a lot easier to identify them when we see them.
Mm-hmm. I got you.
Soil erosion control too,
Any other discussion on this one?
potentially soil erosion control.
Are we in
Yes.
agreement as a
Yes.
board? Do we support this?
Okay, another issue, next section down, section C, and this reads word for word with the statute of what has to be listed on the citation, okay? And the big issue on here for me is, where's it at? Number 7, the civil fine that will be imposed for the violation if the person does not contest the citation. And the problem with that is, historically, the fine has been issued from the board. But the statute and the ordinance says it has to be on the citation when it's issued. So, there's that disconnect. And I'll touch on that here in just a second when I get back to the fine schedule. But the next page over, basically just gives them
14 days.
14
instead of
days
7.
to respond in writing. Once the citation would be issued, they would have 14 days to respond in writing, to request a hearing. Now, I figure the number of hearings that get requested will go way up, because the fine will already be on the citation. That's,
Yes.
okay, I got to respond to this, or I've got to pay this. So, we should get some people requesting hearings.
So your position would be to put the fine on the citation.
Right. Well, that would bring us in compliance with the statute.
Right.
So, and then the cases that are heard here would actually be cases that were requested to be heard. Instead of going, how many cases where nobody ever shows up?
Right.
So,
With regard to number 7, the civil fine will be, you have to put on there, the civil fine will be imposed. You're not talking about an aggregate fine, but, for example, up to $75 a day
well,
or
I'll,
for the
yeah.
first offense.
Hang on, let me flip over to the fine schedule, which is the last 2 pages on that. If you look, the proposed changes, some of them have been,
Not per day anymore.
correct. It's a flat fine. It's not based on per day. It's hard to do that when it has to go on the citation and it's issued. And then on the,
Here for us too, because we don't have to get the calculators out and all this other
Steve
stuff.
Moss and his calculations will be turned to legend. And I've gone ahead and added some of the other issues onto that schedule, the alarm ordinance, the addressing ordinance, the illicit discharge. Those have the fines listed in their individual ordinances. They were just never added to this list, so, and then, like I said, those are actual flat fines.
What's the household products?
That's, if you have a few bottles with cleaning supplies, this much left in the bottle of them or bottom,
Paint or
yeah,
stuff like that?
yeah, and you go out and dump it in the ditch line, cause well, you know, you don't wanna do anything.
Oh, okay, I
That's
see.
what that would be.
So on this fine we just issued on a, held in abeyance, on a truck and some vinyl siding, what would the fine be now? $75?
No, it'd be 150.
150.
It would be.
$150?
Right, it would be 150 unless they, according to the way the ordinance, unless they requested a hearing. Upon receipt of the citation, they respond in writing within 14 days that they want a hearing. Okay, fine, we'll schedule a code board hearing for that citation. And they'll be required to show up. I mean, it says that in the statute. If they fail to show for their own hearing, they've essentially waived their hearing. And like I said, that's detailed in the statute and the ordinance, so, but upon hearing the case, and you all find them in violation, then you're looking at the next section down on that schedule. Instead of being $150 that was written on the citation, and then now they're looking at $300.
If they have to go to a hearing.
Right.
What's the thinking there? Why is it more if they have a hearing?
It's like a traffic ticket, I guess. I don't know. I mean, that's the way it is in the statute.
Okay,
So,
So the statute specifies these fines as well?
it doesn't specify the amounts, just the procedure.
so they'd be better off not coming in here.
If their
In
prop,
a $150 fine.
I mean, in all actuality, if their property was technically in violation, they'd be better off working with me to bring their property into compliance and not even receive a citation.
Right,
But once, for whatever reason, they can't do it and a citation is issued, then they'd be looking at, a first offense fine of $150. If they feel that I'm wrong, that they brought their property into compliance, and I'm, either too picky or, an imbecile, whatever, they want to exercise their right to have a hearing, they can do that, but,
they run the risk of paying $300 if they're
exactly,
found.
exactly.
It's important to note that on the fine schedule, Section 2 is the maximum number. It's not the actual
Okay, yeah,
mandatory number.
yeah.
So the board could, at a contested hearing, order the fine to be the same as what it would have been had it not been contested. But the availability to go higher is there. So at first glance, it looks like we're punishing people for having hearings, but I think it's the other way. I think they're getting a reduction in the fine for not contesting.
Okay, yeah. But the board would still have the ability to dismiss, when y'all have your hearing.
Right.
Dismiss it. I'm assuming issue a particular order if, you felt like you need to give somebody 60 days. I don't think that the board's hands would be tied in any manner.
So like in the case today where it took 135 days and they still haven't brought it into compliance, they didn't ask for a hearing, we would fine them $150 and it'd be over? They could just still leave it in non-compliance?
Till a second offense. But how long is that? Till second complaint? Or 30 days?
After the date of the first violation, when's the second violation?
Well, and Matt, if upon issuing of a citation, isn't that really kind of the first offense? And then if they don't bring into compliance, there could be a second citation,
Absolutely.
and then that would trigger a greater fine
How long do they
or
have?
yet another, even if it was the same amount. But again, if they get the first citation and still do nothing, they could get another citation and that could be another fine. And it
Statutes.
could end up being multiple if they just
What
didn't
would
do
we use
anything.
as the determining factor for the amount of time between the first citation and the second?
They got
The
30 days.
14 days, or,
But they have 14 days to respond in writing.
If they paid the fine?
If they've paid the fine and did nothing, there could be another citation. Their best maneuver would be, okay, pay the fine, but get it done.
But if they
Right,
don't,
but I think the question is, if they just come in and hand a check, say, here's your $150, leave me alone, and they don't touch anything, what is the appropriate amount of time
immediately,
before the site would be revisited?
Could be.
immediately, because by paying the fine, they're admitting their guilt.
Right, and I don't think that the statute or the ordinance gives them any buffer time. I think theoretically, you could go
It's up to your discretion.
right away, so.
After the 14-day period. Because they do have 14 days under the first
Respond.
citation to respond.
Right.
Right, but they responded by coming in and making a check within that 14 days.
I think if they
pay
pay,
the fine within 14 days.
Right.
once they pay the,
Nothing.
yeah, once they pay the fine, I don't think you have to wait the rest of the 14 days. If they come in sooner,
That
then
ends it right then?
I think so, but, you know,
I think procedurally, it'd be easier for us to just wait the 14 days
Sure.
because they could come in the next day as they get it, pay the fine and say, I'm going to take the next 13 days to clean it up. And certainly, with Darrell works with them in the whole issue of trying to mitigate.
right, and there's no reason why you wouldn't continue to work with people to avoid that second citation.
Right.
So,
So what that means for Darrell is that hypothetical scenario, someone is cited and they send in their fine. Darrell now has to go make sure that they have brought into compliance again so he can issue a second violation.
But there's no date for how long they have to
Well,
bring it
that's
into
any time.
compliance.
Well, but
before
what
a
you just
second
offered,
It's immediate.
what you just offered was a 14-day
So they could pay a
waiting
fine on
period.
I think to
Tuesday,
me, it
Wednesday,
makes
Thursday,
sense to
Issue
give
another
them
citation.
14 days to respond in writing, to pay the fine, or to clean up the property. There's your window that is, again, those three things could happen.
Should it say that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
On
because
the-
again,
on the
what if,
citation, does it say that on the citation? You have 14 days to respond, pay the fine, and clean up the property, or?
Well, actually, currently, it doesn't list all those on the citation, on the current citation. It lists that they have, actually by statute, 7 days to respond in writing, to request a hearing
Right.
currently.
But with your changes, would those, I mean, you've got to give them a little guidance on how long do I have here to,
14
do
days
it,
to
you know,
contest
so
it
do I
or pay a
have-
fine.
I would assume
it
and hope that
says.
if they get a citation that has a fine attached, they would take some kind of immediate action, which would be to call and say, okay, what's this, what does it mean, and it
Yeah.
could be explained to them. If they chose not to respond at all, then we've got no response, and we could issue another citation, and then another, but they could mount
if
up.
they don't respond, then you can automatically go, that's a second offense.
Second offense, raise the fine.
But then would they be responsible for the first fine and the second fine?
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. If they,
No process is perfect, but I've seen no reason not to make the amendments. It simplifies things in a lot of ways.
I think so.
For all of us, I think. And you may work with this for 6 months or a year and say, well, maybe we better change this too.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be plenty of
But,
surprises. But yeah, this is, when you go through, you sit down to read the statute, this is the most compliant setup that I've found. And like I said, it frees me up a little bit on some of these oddball situations,
Right,
but it doesn't affect the regular day-to-day cases that I get.
right.
So, I still have that ability up to the point that the citation is issued to extend compliance dates to work with the property owners, you know, whatever needs to be done. But at the point that the citation is issued, you know, then, you know, basically it's, you know, you're gonna have to pay a fine, or you're gonna have to request a hearing
Yeah.
and come in front of you all. And like I said, I suspect that the number of people getting citations that start requesting hearings is gonna go way up.
So how does the process work from here? Your office, Jim, submits these requests to fiscal court?
Well, no, again, next Tuesday, there's a public safety committee, and I just texted the chairman of that committee to make sure we were on the agenda. He said yes. So we'll go to that public safety committee. It's a subcommittee of fiscal court. It'll be reviewed by the county attorney's office, and I'm sure Matt will recommend to John Carter that these provisions are okay since he reviewed it. And then we'll put it on fiscal court. It'll be 2 readings, the second reading being a public hearing for comment and then adoption, because it is an ordinance. So
It'll take 2 or 3 months to get it all the way through the process.
about that, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And the only thing I was going to add to it was, especially for Steve and Cindy, that you've been on a long time, I think over the course of a couple of different code enforcement officers and over time and a bunch of refinements and thinking, I think you'll see that we've come a long way. The newer folks, you didn't see
Right.
the old history where our cases used to be 6 months later we'd be here and kind of going, what do we do with this? And so I think we're really working towards a very refined system that
Yeah,
seems to be
definitely.
working.
I see some improvements there that'll make it easier for everybody.
Sure, and actually I want to give compliments to Darrell. I mean, we don't have meetings because he's out there mitigating a lot of these cases before they even get here. So,
I've known that for a while.
yeah, so
We
this will,
want him to lose that,
yeah.
because now he's got other things he's doing.
You
We
could,
want you to
Darrell,
continue.
get it to where we don't have to come in here at all, as long as they keep sending us our $90.
Well, like I said, I suspect, you know, I don't foresee a rise in the number of citations that are issued. And currently, every citation that gets issued, regardless if the property's in compliance by the next day, whether they request a hearing or not, it's in front of you all. This stops that. But supposedly, now, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll
With
see.
the dollar amount on the citation, you know, I think that the ones that want to fight it, and there'll probably be a bunch that'll want to come in. I also have my cases together, so
Okay. Do we need to,
Do we need to do
do we
anything with
need
this?
to do anything with this ordinance, or is it just for our reference?
that's for you all.
State reference, right?
Yeah,
The
I mean,
state
that's for
ordinance.
y'all to use, whatever y'all want to do, you know. If you have any concerns, any comments, any recommendations, you know, today, tomorrow, next week, whatever, get with me, let me know, email me, call me, whatever, you know, give me your input on it. Because, you know, y'all the ones that are sitting up here on the board.
And you also have a little bit of time, because again, the procedural of the Public Safety Committee and then fiscal court, and even a public hearing for the final ordinance. If you think of something in the next several days or week, you know, let Darrell know.
Now, that will change your presentations a little bit, not much, but you won't have the fine schedule will change, and the daily, per day thing will change, but that's,
Yeah, that's pretty
Really
much
all
it.
that's
I'll
gonna
still,
affect
I'll
us.
still basically go with the courtesy letter getting issued out to the property owner. And, you know, then the notice of violation, and, you know, if nothing's getting done, I can't make any progress, then it'll go to the citation, so.
all right.
Well, some of these that are visual citations, well, the concrete, you're gonna need some more help.
Well, actually, you know, I don't think the concrete thing's as bad as it was a
I'm
year and a
saying
half
any-
ago.
I'm saying anything that's gonna have to be actual visual by you or by an officer, because I couldn't report one, because, you know, it wouldn't be.
Right, right. Well, see, currently, there's nothing, I don't think that, you know, like, the county engineer's office have been the ones dealing, you know, with the concrete trucks or whatever. But I don't think they have a mechanism to,
Right, they don't
do it.
have a mechanism to fine, or,
But what I'm saying, though,
just like the,
you can't be everywhere in the county to see all these things.
Well, we also have building inspectors who have tablets or cell phones that could take that picture, and as agents of the county, they
Okay.
could then take that to Darrell and say, here's what we observed, as long as they have the right information,
Ah,
you know, license number, truck, company, and an observation of it, we at least know who did it. If Darrell had to go out to the site then and look and see, yep, there's concrete
Okay.
and washout, or not, but.
Right.
But again, it would flow through Darrell, and we also have erosion control measures that sometimes come into play here that we don't, you know,
Right.
if they get out of whack. Usually we try to work with them and say, go ahead and fix them after a rain event, but sometimes it gets really messy and we could issue a citation there.
Would this work with the police departments too then?
But no, the police aren't involved in this at all. It'd be either the county engineer's office, the building inspectors, or Darrell.
Okay, so as an official officer of the county, or they couldn't report it?
The police, I suppose they could.
Yeah, I mean, if they come across it, they could
you can
definitely
report it.
The
photograph
concrete,
it,
yeah. Right.
email me,
So you got help then?
you know.
Yeah, yeah, so there is help.
You could alert them if you needed it, but
I think the question is whether or not he's going to be able to be available to observe everything in the
Right.
entire county.
and that's not really
All
the
the time.
issue,
It's
but
not.
to be able to do something immediately.
Yes.
Rather than wait
Yeah.
is the more of the issue for you.
Well, you know, here's what I'm finding out. The concrete, and I don't mean to be picking on the concrete companies, but I mean, they're not doing this in Jefferson County, you know, because MSD, from my understanding, takes a chunk.
Well, they have a Gestapo of like 14,000 people out there too, in Jefferson County.
Exactly. So, but they have no problem coming to Oldham County
Right.
and pouring concrete out on the side of the road. So, and like I said, I think a lot of it is just a lack of being able to enforce anything with that.
Yes.
And once it starts getting enforced, they'll stop.
And that has changed, like Darrell said, from 18 months ago. It's infrequent that we see that happen.
I'm seeing more in these developments, I'm seeing more and more of these washout sites set up, so, that actually have concrete in them.
Yeah.
So they're
Oh,
being
they
used.
even have to do it on small projects along the side of the interstate. I've seen those guys set up those
Right.
things. I have to do it every project I do.
So that's what we're looking at. Like I said, feel free, give me any input, call, email, text me, you know, swing by my office, whatever.
I have one comment. Since the proposal is to put in the citation that the fine's going to be this much, we write them a courtesy letter. Could we just put in the courtesy letter, hey, you know, if you don't get this fixed, your fine could be as much as.
Oh, well, actually, I was thinking about the notice of violation at that point, once the notice of violation is issued.
Goes before
Let
the
them know
violation.
that, you know, you can be subject to a fine of X amount, and put that in the notice of violation.
But the first thing that they get.
Well, the courtesy letter is usually first, but, you know, I don't want to, I don't want to overwhelm them in the courtesy letter because it's a courtesy letter. You know, it's basically, hey, look, we've got this problem. This is what I need you to do. And I'd rather get their compliance and their goodwill. I don't, you know, if I send them a courtesy letter that starts listing fines and all that, it's not going to seem that courteous. But if it doesn't work, if they don't do anything, then yeah, generate the notice of violation and put in there. You know, this is the fine that's possible. You know, if this doesn't get corrected.
State that they're in violation of a county ordinance and please bring it into compliance, basically.
In the courtesy letter?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So, you know, it lists the violation, it lists a paragraph that has a detail in it. I was at such and such place, this is what I observed. This is the ordinance that forbids it. I've got in there, please call me at your earliest convenience. You know, and a lot of them do, some don't.
Yeah.
And
most
you got to
of them
realize the
don't.
courtesy letter is completely outside of the regulatory
Yes.
side. We added that because I said, a lot of people don't even understand that somebody cares about what their property looks like or what's going on. So just as kind of an initial point of contact, it was like, here we go. And we get a lot of compliance just from that. So, and like Darrell said, okay, they don't respond, or we can't find somebody to respond to, or we get the letter back, then you send them a notice of violation. That's where it's all laid out that Here's the
Yeah.
rest of the real procedure now,
that-
within the law.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that starts the clock ticking,
Gotcha.
basically. So,
But, you know, the courtesy letter has been quite effective. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
the majority of the cases I get, close out without going past the courtesy letter. So,
We're glad it's working.
yes,
Is
yes.
there any other business to come before the board today? If not,
Move we adjourn.
I accept or adjourn. Everybody approve? So done.